This is going to be about a gentleman named Tom Robbins. Years ago, in the closing decades of the last century, Tom Robbins was a prominent novelist. There were many who were devoted to his particular genius. I can easily render the flavor of his work by simply listing the titles. He wrote Another Roadside Attraction, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, Still Life with Woodpecker, Jitterbug Perfume, Skinny Legs and All, Half Asleep in Frog Pajamas, Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates, Villa Incognito, Wild Ducks Flying Backwards, and BJ's for Beer. Of these, I have read none. I can't recall what exactly I had against them. I know I was exposed to excerpts in magazines, and they were not, for whatever reason, and I think it might have been I thought they were too clever by a half, for me. He had an artsy side, was a social activist with a comic bent, but he went along his way without me. However, I just finished a book by Tom Robbins entitled Tibetan Peach Pie, a true account of an imaginative life, a memoir of sorts. Imagination is everything to Tom Robbins. It is his sword and his shield. It's his Tibetan peach pie. Above all, Robbins wanted to be transported. It could be by drugs or music or love or art, travel or food. The medium didn't matter. He wanted to be carried away. Nothing else could satisfy him. He needed that flight of fancy, that kick. He sometimes refers to himself by a childhood nickname, Tommy Rotten, and he likes being Tommy Rotten. Tommy Rotten is that guy on the black motorcycle. He found his literary voice while writing a late-night review of a Doors concert, and he loved the Doors because they seemed to be a genuine threat, a real danger, a sharp stick stabbed into the eye of the prevailing culture, the mainstream. Robbins had no interest in the mainstream. He wanted to be on a raft, rushing down a roaring rapids, hellbound. Some people make a point of trying to squeeze the most living out of life. Tom Robbins did that. He tripped on LSD, smoked mountains of pot, was married, I think, 4 times, I lost track, had countless paramours, 3 sons, and traveled the globe with the money he made from his books. He also trumped all of that by dreaming of new conditions, fresh possibilities, brave new worlds where the rules concocted in his feverish brain, his rules, apply. He was not constrained by reality. Reality for him was the jumping off point, a reference useful only to demonstrate what is meant by drab and ordinary, the big ho-hum. Reality is something that, when he packs for a trip, he leaves behind. Reality is matter, dull matter. Imagination is energy, explosive force, rainbows and dragons. It excited him no end that some people considered him dangerous. Tommy Rotten. Great stuff. I jotted down some words, a constellation about him, as I read this book. Imagination, of course. Transformation, true romantic, pacifist, intellectual, artist, tomato sandwiches, Zen bohemian, uninhibited, countercultural, quirky, and offbeat. He found out that he was distantly related to Daniel Defoe, so he read Robinson Crusoe and wrote Defoe was an imperialist, a racist, a sexist, and somewhat of a literary hack, which is to say, in his entire book there is not one sentence so daring, or so beautiful, or so funny, or so wise that I'd give $25 to have written it. Naturally, those are the qualities that he tries to put into his prose, or as I have come to call it, his peculiar. And I have no doubt that his work was very peculiar, proudly peculiar. I'm still not going to read it. He thought about a Japanese expression, wakisabi, the art of finding beauty in things that are imperfect, incomplete, humble, or unconventional. I take a certain refuge in crazy wisdom, he wrote. His imagination was the one wild ace always up his sleeve, his own infernal pinball machine, all lit up, and him with a truck full of quarters. It was his eye for golden auras. He basked in the glow of those golden auras. Romantically inclined artists, musicians, writers want to be loved, and they want to create a better space than the one around them here and now. They do that, and it is not the less because it's make-believe. For some, that makes it even better. It's the work of Peter Pan and Harry Potter and Tommy Rotten.